This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Oil slipped on Wednesday, giving up an earlier gain, as signs of ample supply and rising U.S. crude inventories countered hopes for higher demand arising from a jump in manufacturing in top crude importer China. U.S. oil inventories rose by 6.2 million barrels in the week ended February 24, according to market sources citing American Petroleum Institute (API) data, ahead of official Energy Information Administration stocks figures at 15:30 GMT. Brent crude was down 41 cents, or 0.4%, to $83.04 a barrel at 12:40 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate WTI crude fell 60 cents, or 0.7%, to $76.45.
Premiums of marine fuel, also known as bunkers, are set for a bumpy recovery in March in Singapore, the world's largest bunkering port, as refueling demand from the shipping sector has recently waned, multiple trade sources said. A weaker Singapore bunker market reflects slowing activity at one of the world's most major ports that sits on a crucial shipping lane, while lower demand will also weigh on Asia's fuel oil refining margins. Bunker premiums for the most actively traded very low sulfur fuel oil, VLSFO, grade, which contains maximum 0.5% sulfur, have tumbled over 65% compared to early 2023, with most of the drop occurring in the past week, sources said.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
U.S. crude oil production fell in December to 12.10 million barrels per day, BPD, its lowest since August 2022, Energy Information Administration, EIA, data showed on Tuesday. Among the top oil-producing states, monthly output in Texas sank 1.2% to 5.15 million barrels of oil per day, also its lowest since August 2022, the EIA said. In North Dakota, output sank 12.5% to about 950,000 barrels of oil per day, its lowest since April 2022. In New Mexico, output grew 2.7% to 1.77 million barrels of oil per day, the highest on record, the EIA said. Meanwhile, product supplied, a proxy for demand, of crude and petroleum products fell in December to 19.49 million barrels of oil per day, the lowest since March 2021, the EIA said.
The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency on Wednesday proposed a rule to allow sales of gasoline with a higher ethanol blend in certain U.S. Midwest states, a win for the ethanol and farm industries that have sought the expansion for years. Any change would not take effect until summer of 2024, the EPA said. Governors in major corn-producing Midwestern states including Iowa, Nebraska and Illinois had requested that the EPA effectively lift a ban on E15, or fuel containing 15% ethanol. They had asked that the EPA lift restrictions starting the summer of 2023. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Lost sales from a closed tin mine in Peru operated by state-run Minshur reach $118 million, a company executive said on Tuesday, as 2 months of anti-government protests in the country have prevented a restart to operations. Minsur's San Rafael de Puno tin mine normally produces about 9% of global tin, according to company data, but it closed operations in January after protests erupted following the December ouster and jailing of former President Pedro Castillo. The mine is located near many of the most intense protests that have engulfed the country's Andean south since the removal of Castillo, who had attempted to illegally dissolve Congress and rule by decree.
Prices of copper and other industrial metals rose on Wednesday after data from China, the biggest metals consumer, showed manufacturing activity rose in February at the fastest pace in more than a decade. Also lifting metals was a fall in the value of the dollar, including against China's yuan, which made dollar-priced metals more affordable for non-dollar buyers. Benchmark copper on the London Metal Exchange, LME, was up 1.3% at $9,080 a ton in official ring trading. Global stock markets rebounded.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural.
India has decided to scrap a duty-free imports quota of 2 million tons of crude sunflower oil for the next fiscal starting from April 1st, the government said on Wednesday, as the world's biggest importer of vegetable oils tries to support local oilseed farmers. The move could lead to higher imports of palm oil, which was earlier attracting taxes even as imports of sunflower oil and soy oil were allowed without any taxes under the quota. New Delhi in May 2022 allowed duty-free imports of 2 million tons of sunflower oil in 2022-23 and had initially planned to repeat that in 2023-24. India sources sunflower oil from Russia and Ukraine. That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.